Harvard Yard echoed with celebration the day my twin sister was surprised with a summer tour across Europe, while I was handed a $10 Starbucks card and a note that read, "Gratitude makes life richer." The crowd laughed, thinking it was sweet. None of them realized that for almost 18 months, every bill that kept our red brick home running had quietly come out of my bank account, not my parents'. Standing there in my graduation gown beside Amelia's effortless smile, something finally clicked. My family hadn't been raising daughters. They had been cultivating assets. And when I eventually stopped financing their perfect image, they didn't suffer a financial loss. What they lost was the illusion they had spent years performing. That was the part no one expected. People usually imagine family as warm dinners, shared jokes, and the familiar scent of something baking in the oven. In the Morgan household, everything from the outside fit that picture. We had polished brick walls, a spotless white door, and hydrangeas that always bloomed on time. But inside, affection came with conditions, and I was constantly reminded that I never fit the dress code. My mother, Diane, treated life like a series of presentations. Her smile could charm a room, her voice could shut one down, and appearances meant more than genuine emotion. Amelia, my twin, was her finest creation. Elegant, magnetic, glowing even on her worst days. I was the child who made sure the lights stayed on and the Wi-Fi never went out. When we were 10, we played in a small recital downtown. I can still remember the faint citrus of my mother's perfume and the squeak of the metal chairs. I performed Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, hitting each note with precision. The applause afterward was polite but brief. Mom leaned in, her voice gentle yet edged. "Selena, you need to play with more emotion. Music isn't math." I swallowed hard and nodded. Then Amelia took the stage. She missed notes, stumbled midway through, but kept smiling the entire time. And somehow, that smile was enough. Mom clapped harder than anyone in the room. "See, that's heart," she said. And in that moment, a quiet truth settled in. In our family, mistakes wrapped in charm counted as talent. Effort delivered without sparkle didn't exist. The years moved on, and I gradually became the household technician, accountant, and emergency problem solver. When Dad's email got hacked, I fixed it. When Mom forgot her Apple ID password again, I sorted it out. When Amelia's resume formatting fell apart, I repaired that too. And when the mortgage warning arrived, interest climbing, Dad's voice tight with worry, I opened my laptop and took care of it without a word. Every month, a payment slipped from my account labeled Morgan Household, Selena Contribution. I never mentioned it. Maybe some part of me hoped love could grow quietly, like a seed thriving in the dark. But in that house, only whatever sparkled was allowed in the light. Most nights, while my dorm room hummed with silence, I coded for Meetview Labs. The glow of my screen stretched across the walls as I built interfaces for medical AI. Tools that actually worked, things that mattered. Amelia, meanwhile, posted rooftop photos and glossy night views. And when my bank balance finally pushed past 5 digits for the first time, I didn't celebrate. I just stared at it, thinking, maybe now they'll notice. They never did. So, when Mom presented Amelia with the Europe trip and handed me that tiny gift card, it wasn't a shock. It was simply the prettiest version of a pattern I'd lived with for years. But something shifted inside me that day. Not a loud break, just a soft click, like a door closing. Graduation dinner should have felt like a milestone, an ending and a beginning. Instead, it felt like a sentence being read aloud. The dining room glowed under the chandelier, and the cake waiting on the table read, "Congratulations, Amelia and Selena." Her name was twice the size. Silverware chimed, plates clattered, and Mom's voice rose gracefully above it all. Amelia would have to start packing soon, Paris first, then Venice. She always had a knack for imagining her future as if it were already waiting for her. During dinner, Dad lifted his glass and made a toast. "Both my daughters are brilliant, but Amelia, she just has that spark of leadership." Laughter circled the table like it had rehearsed its timing. I smiled politely and cut into a slice of cake I couldn't even taste. When Mom finally looked my way, her voice softened into that sugary tone she used whenever she wanted her words to sound wise, instead of condescending. "Selena, darling, you really should learn to be happy with less. Gratitude makes life richer." I nodded. even though something inside me cracked. Quietly. Almost like a breath I had been holding for years. Later that night, while Amelia posted photos of her cake and her passport, I sat in my old bedroom, the walls still covered in fading childhood artwork. The only light came from my laptop screen. Out of habit, I opened my banking app. A long list of payments appeared, each one labeled Morgan Household, Selena Contribution. 18 months. Anywhere from $300 to $200 every month. The realization settled like a splash of cold water. They had never asked how the bills were being paid. They assumed the universe was simply generous, interest rates dropping, banks being flexible, miracles happening on their behalf. Anything except the truth. I had been the one holding our house upright. The next morning, I canceled the automatic transfer. It felt like a small action, but it landed with surprising finality. 2 weeks later, Dad called. The bank says the payment didn't go through. Did something happen? Yes, I said. I stopped paying. Silence stretched for a moment before his tone sharpened. Selena, you can't just walk away. We're family. You're obligated to help. I did help, I replied. For a year and a half. Mom's voice joined the call, full of trembling disbelief. Don't be dramatic. You're lucky to have what you have. Don't let success make you arrogant. A strange urge to laugh washed over me. I'm not arrogant, Mom. I'm exhausted. They didn't understand. Maybe they never would. That night, I packed my things. No shouting, no guilt. Just the quiet rhythm of zippers and neatly folded clothes. Moonlight slid across my desk and rested on my diploma, the gold-embossed Harvard seal glowing faintly. It was proof of everything I had built, not with family support, but entirely on my own. When I finally walked away, the red brick house stood behind me like a museum filled with memories I never asked to collect. I crossed the Longfellow Bridge with the city glowing behind me, the lights reflecting across the Charles River in a soft, wavering shimmer. For the first time, the familiar tug of guilt didn't follow me. I wasn't running from my family. I was stepping away from the version of myself they had crafted. Quiet, dependable, invisible. I didn't know then that by the time they realized what I had stopped providing, the clock had already run out. The first warning arrived on a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed with a bank alert. Request to add new backup payment method. At first, I assumed it was an error. Then the name appeared, Michael Morgan, my father. No call, no message, not even a courtesy question. He had simply tried to link my account back to their mortgage, as if the money I earned still belonged to the household by default. I sat motionless for a moment, my coffee growing cold beside the keyboard. Then I dialed the bank. The representative's voice was gentle, almost apologetic. We just need to verify. Did you authorize this request? No, I said. Freeze the account. Document everything. I want a record of every attempted change. A strange calm settled over me, the kind that came not from emotion, but from clarity. I wrote down the case number, the time, the representative's name. Then I created a new folder on my laptop titled Evidence. Inside it, I began collecting everything. Payment receipts, email notifications, call logs. I didn't feel angry or hurt. I felt focused. Each file was a piece of armor. Each screenshot a small, sharp truth. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for the moment they would pretend not to remember. 2 days later, I drove to Newton. From the outside, the house looked unchanged. Trimmed roses, porch light glowing warmly. But the moment I stepped inside, the air felt different, thick with something unsettled. Mom sat rigidly on the couch, her eyes red. Dad stood near the window, jaw clenched so tightly it looked carved from stone. Amelia leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, watching everything without comment, as if she were attending a performance rather than part of the scene. Dad spoke first. We need to talk, he said. Do you understand what happens if the bank forecloses? I held his gaze, unflinching. Then maybe you'll finally understand what it costs to live on someone else's dime. Dad's voice hit the air like a stone thrown through glass. I didn't flinch. Maybe you'll understand what it costs to live on mine. His expression tightened. Don't talk to me like that. This is family. And I'm part of it, I replied, keeping my voice low. Just not your personal bank. Mom stepped in, her voice trembling with urgency. Selena, please, you don't have to make this harder than it already is. I drew in a slow, steady breath. You made it hard the moment you treated my trust like an ATM password. Silence fell over the room. The old clock on the wall ticked loud enough to feel like another accusation. Amelia finally huffed from her corner. You're overreacting. You could have just talked to them. I turned toward her, calm but cutting. The same way you talked to them when you got a European vacation and I got a $10 sermon on gratitude? Her confidence faltered, her smile slipping out of place. My eyes drifted around the living room. The family photographs arranged just so. The router I'd installed. The framed "Together we are stronger" quote that Mom adored. Every object felt like a small reminder of the story we were all forced to perform. I'm done living inside that illusion, I said softly. If you want control, take it. Just don't use my name to get it. And then I walked out, closing the door behind me. No one yelled. No one chased me. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It burned. Back home, I opened my laptop. The evidence folder sat where I left it, each document neatly labeled, time-stamped, ready. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about boundaries, ones I should have drawn years ago. The truth was beginning to sharpen itself, slow and deliberate. It all unraveled because of one careless click. I was updating tax documents late at night, half asleep, the last of my coffee cold beside me. I attached a file from the evidence folder, screenshots of every mortgage payment I had covered, and meant to send it solely to my accountant. I didn't realize my aunt's family group email was still in the CC line. By morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Selena, what did you do? Mom's voice was frantic, breathless. Behind her, drawers slammed open, the sound of panic spreading through the house. Dad was shouting something in the background, but the words were scrambled through the noise. What are you talking about? I asked. Mom's answer came in a frantic rush. Everyone's seen it. Helen posted it on Facebook. You sent the payment records to the entire family. I opened my inbox. It looked like a storm had passed through. Hundreds of notifications, forwarded screenshots, shocked emojis, and long comment threads under a post titled, 18 months of payments labeled Selena contribution. Did anyone know she paid their mortgage? The post had already traveled far beyond just relatives. Mom's church group had shared it. Neighbors had chimed in. Even people from her volunteer circle were discussing it. Some comments were gentle. She's such a devoted daughter. Others were sharp. Maybe she's just trying to brag. But none of it mattered. The truth was out in the open now, and no one could shove it back into the dark. That afternoon, Dad called again. His voice was stripped of its usual authority. There was no charm, no performance, just raw panic. Do you understand what you've done? He said. People are calling, asking if we used you. You've humiliated this family. I exhaled slowly. No, Dad. I didn't embarrass anyone. I just stopped hiding what was already happening. You should have handled this privately, he snapped. I did, I said quietly. For 18 months. He hung up. A few hours later, I heard through the grapevine that the bank manager had called him in. The refinance application he'd submitted was flagged, unstable payment history. Without my deposits, their financial records didn't show consistent, reliable income. The house, their symbol of status, the thing they polished for guests, had suddenly turned into a liability. I didn't feel triumphant. What I felt was stillness, the kind that settles after a storm. Justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it just quietly adjusts the math. Within weeks, the Newton house went on the market. Neighbors whispered behind hedges. Aunt Helen sent me a private message apologizing, insisting she never meant for things to spread that far. But it was already done. The Morgan family's polished image had fractured like porcelain hitting tile. Meanwhile, life kept moving. At Meatview Labs, my projects grew. My responsibilities expanded, and for the first time, my energy went somewhere that returned something to me. At work, people began stopping by my desk with questions about my design choices. They called it quiet precision. The phrase stayed with me. It felt like someone had finally named a part of me I had always carried but never claimed. It became a kind of compass, steady, understated, unmistakably mine. When an investor from the Harvard incubator reached out about a fellowship program, I hesitated before accepting. Returning there felt like walking back into a building where I had once blended into the wallpaper. Except now the spotlight followed me instead of passing me by. During the presentation, I spoke about user-centered design in healthcare technology, how empathy paired with structure could save lives. When it ended, the lead judge shook my hand and said, "This is what impact looks like." That single sentence carried more weight than every compliment I had never received at home. Within months, I founded Novamind Health Design. The office was a modest space near Kendall Square, exposed brick walls, worn secondhand desks, sunlight pooling through tall windows. On one wall, I taped a sheet of paper in thick black marker. "We design clarity for those who save lives." It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Our first contract came from Meetview Labs, then another from a cancer detection startup. Each invoice that cleared felt like I was collecting pieces of myself I didn't realize had been missing. Still, late at night, I occasionally glanced at my phone, half expecting my mother's name to appear. Not out of hope, more out of habit. When the message finally came, it wasn't from her. It was from Amelia. "Mom's sick. Dad's depressed. They're losing the house. You did this." I read the message twice before replying. "No, Amelia. They did." 2 days later, she walked into my office, same perfect hair, same designer coat, but her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. She stood among the potted plants and early prototype sketches, taking in the space like it contradicted a story she'd told herself for years. "Mom can't sleep," she whispered. "Dad's falling apart." I asked. "If you'd just helped, like before." "Like before?" I cut in. "When I paid quietly and they called it luck?" Her mouth trembled as if she had an argument ready, but no words followed. "You've changed," she finally said. "I had to," I answered. "You only loved me when I was useful." For a moment, she looked like she might fight that truth. But she didn't. She just turned and left, her perfume trailing behind her like a fading reminder of the life I no longer fit into. That evening, I drove past the old neighborhood. The red brick house was dark when I drove by, a "for sale" sign angled slightly in the front lawn. Through one of the windows, I spotted cardboard boxes stacked in the living room, quiet monuments to a life rearranged. I parked for a moment, keeping my hands on the steering wheel while the streetlights washed gold stripes across the windshield. My chest didn't twist. It didn't even tighten. I felt calm, as if I'd been holding my breath for years and only now finally learned how to let it go. The next morning, a small headline appeared in the local paper. "Family home foreclosed amid mortgage dispute." I didn't bother reading it twice. Weeks later, while preparing conference slides, my phone buzzed with a call I never expected. Mom. Her voice, when she spoke, was unsteady, frayed at the edges. "Selena, I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I froze. Those words had lived rent-free in my imagination for so long that hearing them felt surreal, almost like a hallucination. "I know what I did," she whispered. "I treated you like a wallet, not a daughter. And now I see what that cost." I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. For once, she didn't wrap her mistakes in silk or hide them behind excuses. When she finally fell silent, I said, "I forgive you, Mom, but forgiveness doesn't mean going back." She began to cry softly, real, tired tears. "I just wanted you to know I mean it." "I know," I said, "and that's enough." When the call ended, I turned off my phone and looked out the window. Winter sunlight glittered across the city, and the Charles River shimmered like polished silver beneath the pale sky. They had lost the house that once defined them, but I had built something they could never take. Boundaries, peace, a life shaped by my own hands. Justice hadn't arrived with sirens or dramatic confrontations. It had come quietly, in the space where truth finally had room to breathe. Months later, on a late winter afternoon, I ran into Mom by accident. Whole Foods in Cambridge was warm and bright, the air smelling of fresh bread and citrus. I was reaching for a bundle of bok choy when I heard her voice, thin, tremulous. "Selena." I turned. She looked smaller than I remembered, her coat a little too big, her hair streaked with silver. For a moment, We simply stared at each other. Two people with years of unspoken words between us. Then she stepped closer, eyes shining. I don't want to make excuses, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just want to say I'm sorry. Her voice trembled as she spoke, each word scraping against years of guilt. I thought I was teaching you gratitude, she murmured. But really, I was teaching you how to disappear. I should have protected you, not the image of our family. My fingers tightened around the shopping cart handle, the metal cold under my palm. I forgave you already, Mom, I said softly. But I'm not coming back. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know, I don't expect you to. I just needed you to hear that I finally understand. Overhead, the store speakers shifted into Moon River, the same song from my childhood recital, only gentler now, like a memory exhaling. For a moment, the years collapsed in on themselves. I didn't feel anger anymore, just a deep, quiet exhaustion that felt a lot like freedom. When she reached out, I didn't step back. I gave her hand a small, steady squeeze. I hope you find peace, I whispered. She turned away slowly, her oversized gray coat sagging on her shoulders. I watched her walk toward the checkout until her figure dissolved into the aisle. Outside, the winter air hit sharp and clean. City lights glimmered across the damp pavement, and right then I understood something. Forgiveness isn't a doorway back, it's a bridge forward. That night, I stood by my apartment window, a mug of tea warming my hands. Boston stretched out beyond the glass, glittering and unhurried. On the wall above my desk hung two things: the framed $10 graduation gift card and my certificate from Novamind Health Design. The card used to feel like an insult. Now it was just a milestone, a reminder of the distance between who I was and who I'd become. I smiled to myself and whispered, gratitude doesn't mean bowing your head. It means knowing when to lift it. If you've ever walked away from people who loved what you provided more than who you were, hear me clearly. You're not alone. Share your story in the comments. And hit subscribe, because silence deserves a voice. Tonight, mine finally has one.